A very good evening to you from Accra, Ghana, and good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are watching us from. My name is Ambassador Benjamin Osuansa, and you are live on the Power Impact Series Show, proudly brought to you by the African Season Speakers Network. Yeah, where we influence the next generation of Africans, and for that matter, young people anywhere, any part of the world. Welcome to that show. And you know how to do it now? Get into the chat area. Let me know who is online with me. Let me feel the energy in the house. Bug me in there. Let me know where you're joining me from and what are your expectations for today's episode. Hey, you know something? We are zooming in right into the African man. And that is where we're going to talk about Africa. What are some of the beautiful things that you know about Africa? What are some of the negative things you've heard about Africa? We are about changing them all for you. It's a matter of mindset. We need to change that mindset for you to brilliantly blow wherever you find yourself. You know something, you are the beacon of the world. Wherever you find yourself, you're going to brighten that corner. It's African Month, yeah? So it is our man. Wherever you are, come out here. Let me know who is online with me. Share the link, share the page, and we are going to have a wonderful time today. So this is how we're going to do it. Stick around, don't go anywhere. I'm going to take my first commercial break. Right after the commercial break, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce to you I guess for today. You know what? You wouldn't want to blink an eye. You wouldn't want to get a scratch in your ear because you want to listen to him over and over and over and over again. Stick around, don't go anywhere. I'll be right back after the commercial break.
Need a spark to kickstart your innovation? Looking for thought and talks to get things moving? Wondering how to navigate a future full of change and uncertainty? With the eye-opening stories of digital disruption, extreme customer centricity, organizational innovation, and global shift, our collective of speakers, MCs, and moderators will shift your perspective. Meet our speakers. For booking and interviews, contact us on 0246 054092 or send us a mail info.afsesnet@gmail.com. You can also follow us on all social media channels at AfsesNet Global, African Seasoned Speakers Network, influencing the next generation of Africans.
Influencing the next generation of Africans, and that is all we seek to do, and that's all we do. Thank you so much for sticking around, and you are warmly welcome to the Power Impact Series Show, proudly brought to you by the African Seasoned Speakers Network, influencing the next generation. So, if you're just joining me, get to the chat area. Let me know who is online with me. Get me something. Let me know where you're joining me from, and then let me give you some shout outs. Let me give you some shout out. All right, so we'll quickly go and introduce our guests for today. Are you ready to have our guest for today? Who is that? Okay, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Stephen, for joining us from South Africa. Hey, how are you doing in South Africa? Oh, yes, you're doing good. I can see. We are here from the western part of Africa. Yes. Thank you so much. Share the link. Let us also join, and let's also have more people online to listen to this wonderful person that we have in house here today. Right. So, quick one. This is just a simple introduction because the person is in here. So, he's going to tell us more about themselves. So, why do we keep talking and giving a lot of things about him? But you know, this person we're going to interview today, or this person going to join us on the Power has lived almost 23 years in Africa, and he has in-depth knowledge about Africa. You know what? He's lived in South Africa before. He's also lived in Ghana, Accra before. Not only Accra, he actually maneuvered his way through Ghana, so he knows a couple of places in Ghana as well. And he's lived in Nigeria. So it's kind of where he's done like a 7-figure in Africa, from the west through to the central, to the southern, to the eastern, to the northern, and he has a whole understanding of the African continent. Not only has he lived in the African continent, he has lived in Europe as well. So he has an idea of what he wants to talk about. He's in the media space as well. Yes. Yeah, he's in the media space. And he has a show together with a friend called Afro Space on YouTube that also ran a couple of interviews, and he's been able to interview about 40 prominent Africans on his show. So he was going to give us the handle or the address to that show, and then you're going to go and then also subscribe and look at some of the people that he's interviewed on his show. And not only that, you know something, this wonderful person that we have in here today, I guess, is the founder of African Solutions Express. So you can now link it up. African Solutions Express. Are you going to talk about African solutions today? Oh my God, that is good in here. It's getting good in here. It's getting good in here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are ready, because I am ready, you know what? I'm ready. You can just see I'm ready because we're zooming into the African month, and then it's a perfect timing for us for him to open the doors to the celebration of African month. Ladies and gentlemen, for the very first time on the Power Impact Series show, all the way from Nigeria, help me welcome the man himself, Adetunji Omotola. That is the man for you. That is the man for you. That is the man for you. That is the man for you here. All right. I think I'm getting some feedback from your other device. Yes. Okay, so let me try and see what I can. Let me take this one out first, and then let's see if you can hear me. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we're trying to. All right. Beautiful. I can hear you loud and clearly now.
Thank you very much for having me. That was a wonderful introduction. I felt like Mike Tyson. That's the way that boxers get introduced.
From the green and white corner.
Yes.
How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm very well. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you also for coming on to the show. We are so happy.
You're welcome.
To have you here.
You're welcome.
Right.
You're welcome.
So how have you been? I mean,
yeah, we're good. I'm actually in South Africa, and we have what they call. Yeah, I'm in Johannesburg. So we have what they call load shedding. So every few hours they take off, like what you guys used to have in Ghana. Dumso. So we have our own dumso here. It's not easy, but
this with a South African flavor.
No, this is a reminder that we're in Africa. So if you have too much electricity, you should thank God in Africa. You thank God every day.
If you have too much electricity, thank God in Africa. All right, so I just did a little intro about you. But hey, we have the main man in the house. We have the main man in the studio. You want to tell us about yourself? Who is Adetunji Omotola? You are here. We want to hear from you. There might be some things I've missed.
Yeah, so I'm quite boring, but let me try and make it exciting. So Adetunji Omotola is the son of a former vice chancellor of University of Lagos, a professor of law. I'm the second son. I studied in a school called St. Finbar's College in Lagos, and I studied at CMS Grammar School, and I went to University of Maiduguri for 2 years, a town that has been made famous by Boko Haram, Maiduguri. I went to that university, and I finished sociology at the University of Lagos. I moved to the UK. I studied a master's in communication research. And then my late father told me I must study law. No matter what I do, I must study law. So I studied law. And then after law, I tried to practice law, but I didn't get to it. Then I became a stockbroker in London. And after 6 months, I returned back to Nigeria, where I qualified as an attorney. So I'm a solicitor and advocate of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, even though I've never practiced law before. But when I came to South Africa, it was quite tough to get into the legal profession. So I defaulted to financial planning. So I became a financial planner, or what they call a financial consultant. I did that for a few years, and then I moved into the wine business because it was quite difficult for me to get business when I first joined a company called Old Mutual at the time. So I decided to so I was using wine as a way to get people to come and listen to me. So I'll get them drunk, and then they will support my business. So I was quite good in selling wine, and I took the wines to Ghana. And I
Okay.
moved to Ghana in 2008. I moved to
Wow.
Ghana, and I did
Wow.
that for a year, and that's how I traveled around Ghana. Koforidua, Dunkwa, Obuasi, Pram Pram,
Okay.
Adan,
Okay. Okay.
Apostombo. So
That's
yeah, so
right.
I'm a wine consultant as well, and for my sins, I'm also in the media space. But I'm very passionate about the political economy of Africa. So I call myself a global African thought leader.
I love that global African thought leader. That's beautiful. That makes it nice. Yeah, yeah. I
Thank
love
you.
it. I love it. I mean, so we can bottle you up as that global African thought leader, and perfect. That's all you're going to do here today for us. Right, 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 right. So, how's the African political terrain been? I mean, for the year and the review that 2023 from January till now, being the last day of the month of April before we zoom into May, we're going to celebrate our month.
Yes, I think the African political terrain has not been very good because the major story of this year has been the Nigerian elections, particularly the presidential elections. And you may be aware, Benjamin, that a lot of people are not happy with the results, especially how the results was announced and a breach of one of the major rules of the electoral law, which is to upload the results electronically in real time. And because that wasn't done, the results have been regarded as largely, not free and fair results. That doesn't reflect the will of the people. Yes, there's a president elect. Yes, there will be an inauguration of the president on the 20th, or the president elect on the 29th of May, which is a month from now. But people are not happy. And also, under this current government, people have said, look, there's a lot of economic decline, insecurity has not been addressed. So, from a political perspective, when Nigeria is not doing great, it affects the West African region or sub region. And when South Africa is not doing great, as you know, then it affects the SADC region. And when the DRC is not doing so great, then it affects the Central African region. And Ethiopia also has been at war, so it affects the Horn. You can see now Sudan now wants to jump in where
Yeah.
Ethiopia stopped. So the political terrain in Africa at the moment is looking very, very dismal, and so is the economic situation. And the only hope the people now have is the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. But even that, today I can tell you that the Nigerian government has increased duties on wines, they've increased
Mm-hmm.
duties on cars, they've also added more goods to the list of banned items that can be imported into the country. So that is not in the spirit of the Africa Continental Free Trade. They should be doing away with tariffs altogether on some products. And if you were to increase the tariff of wine, that's a made in South Africa product. So how
Yeah.
does that help South Africa to enter the Nigerian market or deepen their entry? So I think the politics is not really great. I think the politics is not so great at all. But I think the music is helping us to cope with the hopelessness of the politics. So the music is rising and the politics is declining. And so are the economies.
The music is rising, the politics is declining. Wonderful, wonderful. Ahmed, yay. Who is online with me now? Let me know who is joining me now. Who is, oh, thank you so much. Fuad Chinebua Kodia says, nice outfit. Yeah. I mean, you can't get it wrong with Omotola. Yeah. You understand. He understands the African, so he has to come with the
Thank you.
outfit. That's who I mean, you understand. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Thank you. Let me know who's online again. Share the link. Let others also join, and then we will start with our topic for today. And then we actually started with it. Africa in the 21st century. So that is one part of it. We're going to look at Africa in the 21st century. We're going to look at that one. Then we're going to break it again into the other part, how diaspora will be its trajectory for growth and development. So how are we looking at Africa in the 21st century?
Okay. Look, first of all, some of the things that have happened we need to look at the landscape of Africa as a whole. So the 21st century started from 2000. And if you remember that it was in 2004, in fact, 2002, 2 years into the millennium, that the AU, the African Union, was established, whereby they now had what they talk about in terms of moving Africa forward. One Africa, they created the Pan-African Parliament, they created a new partnership for African development, the AU Charter, which talked about bringing Africa together and batting together as one from an economic perspective, because they agreed that they had achieved what the OAU was set out to achieve, which was political freedom. So in 1994, South Africa had become a free country, Namibia in 1990, and Zimbabwe in 1980. So all of these countries that came to the party late, they had become independent, and democracy was taking root. South Africa in 94, Ghana, of course, in 92, with Jerry Rawlings removing his military fatigue to put on civilian clothing, and then Nigeria in 1999. And so with Nigeria and Ghana and South Africa being democratic, of course, investments started to come in, and we had the millennium. So, people started to use the internet, the World Wide Web. There was a lot of technological drive. People started getting cellular phones. I'm sure you remember when cellular phones came out to Ghana, the Tigos and all of those. And so that opened up the economy, because there wasn't a telco economy before that. And so now you had mobile subscribers, people selling SIM cards, people having retail shops, selling mobile phones, and people becoming able to run their businesses off the phone. And now you even have, what you call mobile banking. All of those things did not exist before in Africa. So, and when you look at countries like Nigeria that then did a rebasing in 2014, where the economy now became the largest in Africa, from about $200 billion to $510 billion in 2014. So Africa has seen a lot of trajectory with democracy, with more proliferation of the media, social media. Everybody has a social media account, and they have a SIM card. They have a cell phone. That has created the need for computers. A lot more people are using computers. And also that has driven other things like entertainment as well. Because people are now downloading from the internet. They're watching their favorite YouTube. I mean, the likes of WizKid. They're on Twitter. So there's a lot that IT has done, and there's a lot that democracy has done in Africa. Also, we've seen more airlines that have come on stream, both private and public, national. Rwanda has grown, the Rwanda National Airline has grown to become a global African brand. So has Ethiopian Airways done. And we have airlines like Air Peace that are flying directly into South Africa, even though it's a private airline in Nigeria, but it's allowed to come in. Before that, there was Arik Air. So Africa's economy has grown in leaps and bounds. Banks as well, the likes of Standard Bank, companies like DSTV that have grown across Africa, even the likes of Big Brother Africa, you've seen content like that. All that has happened in the 21st century. Even Davido, Burna Boy, Wizkid, these are all 21st century babies, if you like. So there's a lot that has happened in Africa, but the challenge for me is how do we marry the success in Africa with the success of Africans in diaspora and then leverage that into the continent, because you have less people coming from diaspora to return to Africa as opposed to those who are traveling out to move out. And once you have a disparity between those who are moving to relocate back and those who are running away, what they call in Nigeria, japa, which means to run away. So when people are running away, whether they're going through Agadez, they're going through Libya go on boats in the Mediterranean, and you are not getting quality people replacing them, then that is a tragedy. And that is something that has been affecting Africa for the last decade or so, where we have so many people running away, despite the fact that Africa is the richest continent.
Wow. That's incredible. I love the way he has described the 21st century for the African or for Africa. And that's perfect. I mean, we've seen all these beautiful things that have happened over this period. And yes, so after seeing all these things, all these wonderful things that have happened, how do we then kind of, in your own words, marry it to the people in the diaspora so that we can have more growth and more development? Because
Yeah,
we think to see that we are marking time. Yes, we have all these things, but we are not seeing that kind of forward movement. But then we always relying on past glories and all those kind of stuff. How do we marry these things for growth and
yes.
development?
I
The
think first
forward
of
movement.
all, there needs to be, thank you very much, Benjamin. I think first of all, there needs to be a realization by Africans that the current way that Africa is being run,
Mm,
the current way
mm,
that government operates, they waste a lot of money, they spend a lot of money, they have a budget, but they don't implement the budget according to
mm.
the letter of the budget. The government officials are spending too much money on cars, on holidays, on traveling, and not so much money on infrastructure like healthcare, paying teachers, paying doctors, building
Mm,
hospitals,
mm,
building roads, making sure that people are safe, that the crime is low, that poverty is reduced, that people are educated, and that when people come into the country, they want to stay. They want to stay. Why do people want to go to America and stay there? And when
mm.
they go to Nigeria or Ghana, they have a lot of concerns about bureaucracy. Things are slow, red tape, the roads are bad. When it rains, everywhere is a mess. There's refuse, there's density, there's a lot of things, mosquitoes, the gutters, open gutters. So these are the things that make it difficult for even diasporas who are patriotic to want to relocate. Because I have a friend of mine who is from Ghana, and rather than move to Ghana from South Africa after 10 years, he's gone to Saudi Arabia. He's moved
Mm.
to Riyadh. He tells me it's paradise here, even though there's no alcohol and there's no social life, there's no alcohol there at all. But the man is happy, he's cooking, he's eating, he's waiting for his family to join him. So I'm sympathizing with Ghana because Ghana is the biggest loser. If a Ghanaian
Sure.
who has so much experience leave South Africa for Riyadh on a big project that is bigger than the IMF loan that Ghana is looking to collect. The project this man has gone to do in Ghana is bigger than the IMF loan that President Akufo-Addo is praying that he can get quickly to solve some small problems in Ghana. So these are the challenges. We first of all, they need to fix Africa to a level where at least, when you're going to move from Canada or from the US or from Australia or from Germany or Holland, Netherlands, to let's say Kasua, or you want to move to maybe even Pram Pram, you shouldn't feel like you have gone to the 20th century, that there's no internet, you can't have a decent meal at a reasonable rate, maybe $5 for a beautiful meal with eggs and bacon and all of that. So if people cannot live well, and I think the best example is South Africa. The reason why there's a lot of Africans in South Africa, and even Europeans who have moved here, is because of the quality of life. So whilst apartheid was a terrible thing, the worst thing that could happen, but at least South Africa was built up. It's very modern. There are hotels, there are restaurants, there are good places to go on holiday. You don't have to leave South Africa to go to Europe. As a South African, there's no need to do so. And it's cheaper because you pay in rands. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is you have to appreciate, Benjamin, that most of our leaders in Africa do not appreciate the quality of citizenry that they have outside their borders. Nigeria is a very good example. I talk about 4 women regularly. One of them is the head of the WTO, the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She's the most powerful woman in the global financial architecture, full stop. She is the most powerful woman because the lady that was at the World Bank, I think she's leaving now. So, but she's on the same level with that lady because she had run for the World Bank job before. There's also another lady that I talk about, another Ngozi. This is another Ngozi Chimamanda Adichie, the author of Americana, Half of a Yellow Sun. She's a powerful A-lister. She sits and hangs out with Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama. Yeah. So that's Ngozi Chimamanda Adichie. There's another Nigerian lady who is the number 2 at the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, Dr. Amina Mohammed, number 2, first African woman to be number 2 at the United Nations. So she's moving in the same level, almost as the level of Kofi Annan. She's our own Kofi Annan in the making. So we are trying to compete with Ghana to produce a UN Secretary General. So that's another lady. Then there's a lady who used to be the former Director General of the Stock Exchange Commission in Nigeria. Her name is Aruma Ote. She's at the Said Business School in Oxford. Now, those 4 women are sitting in very big positions. But guess what? Does it filter down? Because in the same context, we have a lot of Africans in the countries where these powerful women are who have a lot of immigration problems. So we talk about African Solutions Express. So if you have a lot of Africans who are doing well in America, we have Giannis in the NBA, we have Toby Amusho, who's the fastest woman, 110 meters hurdles. We have a lady called Amini Kajunju. Amini Kajunju used to be, she's the first black woman, African woman or black woman to be the director of the African American Institute, and she's now the chief operating officer of the Ellen Johnson Center for Women and Development. So she's moved on to go and help the former Liberian president. Now, all of these people are doing very well, but we have the base of Africans who are illegal in foreign climes, who don't have permits, Some of them are in prison for petty crimes like not having permits or maybe burglary. And unfortunately, they become criminalized. And many of them are living in very difficult conditions. And as I shared with you earlier, there are people now who will be sent to Rwanda. So, why should an African who comes from a rich African nation be suffering in Europe or in America, have no papers, be criminalized for no papers when you come from a continent that has gold, diamond, bauxite, manganese, copper, aluminium, you have fish, you have ocean, you have the big five, you have wine, you have grapes, you have cocoa, you have everything in Africa. So I find it that African leaders have not done a proper audit of the vulnerable citizens that they have in diaspora. They focus too much on the remittances that is sent into the country, which can, in some countries, represents about 35% of their GDP. In countries like South Sudan, in Ghana, it's about 7.5% of the GDP. But in South Sudan, it's 35% of GDP. And we're talking about, yes, we're talking about $100 billion a year that Africans remit back to Africa. And if those monies are not being remitted, because it's much higher than the FDI, the foreign direct investment, it's actually double. If those monies are not being remitted, then there'll be a current account shortfall in many of those African countries where these monies are being remitted. But there isn't a sense that I get that there's a proper discussion, even by the AU, to say African ambassadors around the world should have regular meetings where they must look at the issue of permits for their citizens, as well as passports, as well as the criminal justice system, because the criminal justice system in some countries tends to criminalize Black people very quickly without due regard. Yes. So I think if we can move in that direction, I think the diaspora and the home connection, home country connection will be strengthened. But for now, there's a lot of hopelessness that many Africans who are poor, or some not poor, but having immigration challenges, tend to feel. Hopelessness on many levels that leads to depression and frustration and anxiety and fear. And I don't think African ambassadors have, or even the African Union, has tabled this matter for urgent analysis and discussion.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. I mean, you've shared some brilliant points that we will need to break them down in maybe subsequent episode, because yes, this powerful, I'm actually soaking it slightly, but hey, it's causing a tsunami down there, because you've shaken some tables that yay, we're going to get some answers very soon, and we really need them. Thank you so much. Let me just give some shout out to those that have joined us. Okay, Adesina Lukman Adebowale. He says, "Oh, great stuff." Yeah, it's great stuff. I'm telling you, because what Omotola is sharing here, you have to be on this level to understand it, because hey, he's cracking the whip very, very well, and I love it that way, because that is what he's embodied to do. F.Y. says, good topic. Yes, it's a very good topic. Yes, we can't get it wrong when we have a Omotola in the house. Kezia Amori says, very powerful. I'm telling you, you can't play with this thing. It is powerful. It's powerful. All right, so to move to the next one that we're going to talk about. So, what will make someone in the diaspora, after all these points that you've raised, okay, I want to come home. There's good life. There's good life. But then once I'm coming home, I want to come and start some kind of work companies to bring some loveliness to people. But hey, here's a case. The system is more or less like it's like a cactus plant looking at me. There isn't any way I can really move in and then break through with this. What are some of the things that you think governments can do so that we can attract the people in the diaspora after giving good life for anyone that visits and can find the best of restaurants, can find the best of hotels at affordable cost. But then that's atmosphere of opening businesses or starting something to impart that knowledge that they've gone to acquire in foreign land back home. What are some of the things that governments can do to help this
Okay.
kind of stuff?
Look, I think that every government that should care about every citizen of the country, whether they're within or without. And what I always say also is that the citizen must show interest in the country that they come from. And when I talk about interest, I talk about political economic interest. There's no point in being a Ghanaian and all you want to do is open a business and you're not interested in who governs you, who is your counselor, who is your regional minister, who is your minister, who is in cabinet, who is in parliament, because government has a lot of power over our lives. They tax us, they police us, they give us passports, they decide when we go, when we come, they can impose curfews, they can do whatever. So,
Right.
and the president can travel and go and sign on our behalf without even asking us what we feel. So I think that it's very naive for citizens, good citizens,
Right.
to ignore the politics. Some of the richest people in Africa are politicians. Some of them, some people have been governors, ministers, senators, then they become president. Some people have been in office for 40 years, 50 years. In some countries like Cameroon, I think the president has been there since 1986 or 1982. Paul Biya, when I was in
Yeah.
secondary school, he was the president. He's still president. I'm almost retired now. I'm almost retired. So Africa is a lovely place. So I think on a serious note, I always say this. I quote John F. Kennedy. Ask
Right.
not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I don't think that Africans should expect much from their governments, particularly people who come from poor countries. And many African countries are really very poor. I know Nigeria is quite wealthy. I know South Africa is wealthy. I know that those two stand out. Maybe Egypt,
Correct.
Algeria also stand out. I know the DRC is resource rich, and I know that Ghana is also very resource rich. But Ghana is not rich compared to Nigeria because Ghana's oil, you have to have a commodity on the global market and in
Right.
volume. Ghana does not have even the gold. It's not only Ghana that has gold, and gold is not in use like petrol, like crude oil, because people must drive around every day, and so that's fossil fuel is much more needed than gold. Gold
Right.
is not a need to have. It's not a must have. But oil and gas is a must have, and you need it to power machines. So I believe that citizen Benjamin, citizen Adetunji first, because let me tell you something. If you expect much from a government, and let's say they can't do it for you, that's why a lot of people have to leave the country. They sell their land, they do all sorts of things because they think that the government would do for them. I don't think African governments really care much about the citizens, but they ought to care. But the citizens are the ones who have to hold them accountable. So, for example, you have to find out who is your governor. Some people don't know the governor of their own states. I'm being honest, they don't know the governor. They might know the former governor, but they don't know the current governor because elections happen. You'll be surprised that after elections, when they change governor, people don't know the new governor. It's the reality. Because in some cases, they change twice a year. If there's a
Wow.
court case, if there's a court case, you could have two governors in 1 year. It happens regularly when there's a court
Right.
case. So the citizen first, citizen leads first, then the government will follow. And why do I say so? If you're a citizen and you're doing a lot for your country, I think the government will discover you And even if they don't do anything for you, you can still then go and call them and say, look, I do this, I do that. You too, you need to do this and that. And they'll listen to you. But what we tend to have is citizens in Africa that don't even get involved. They don't speak, so they do nothing, and they don't also complain. That's worse. So I'm not saying that every citizen must be active, but if you're not going to be active, then at least complain. But you can't be a citizen who is not active and you're not complaining. That's worse than being an armed robber. You know, armed robbers, they take everything at gunpoint, forcefully. So
Right.
if you're a citizen, you don't complain and you don't do anything, then you are worse than an armed robber in the real sense, because now you're part of the problem. Because the reason why African politicians don't perform is not that they don't want to perform, but no one holds them accountable when they don't perform. So there's no one to worry about. And that's because Africans are very relaxed about governance. They assume that their leaders will do what they promise to do. And when they don't do it, they're disappointed. And many of them head to the border because they fed up of things not working, hospitals not working, roads not working, schools not working, strikes that take a year. So these are the challenges. So I put it back on the citizen first, especially in the 21st century, because I'll tell you why. Do you know, during COVID, so many businesses collapsed, but some people started different businesses during COVID. Some people started something totally different. I know a gentleman that had a restaurant, but because restaurants were not allowed to receive guests or anything, customers, he then decided to open a retail shop where they're selling food that is not cooked, like tomatoes and bread and eggs. So he turned it into a retail outlet, and they did very, very well. Yes, so that was during COVID. So people had to sell. Some people were selling masks. Some people were selling sanitizers. Some people were selling all sorts of sanitizers, even the ones for shops. So people remodeled their businesses, or they took on new tasks.
Sure. Wow. People took on new tasks. It gets back to the citizenry. You have to be active or you have to complain. You either do any of that. You can't just give it up. You know, sometimes people are like, politics is a dirty game. I don't want to get myself in there. But hey, this is what Omotola is saying. You need to get in there because, yes, with all the knowledge that you've acquired, get in there. Let's make the place a lovely place for others to also be willing to come in, and then we will put our hands to deck and push Africa to where it's supposed to be. Let me tell you, there are a lot of people out there, and Omotola can bear witness to it. He's met a lot of people. There are great people in there, but we need to have that change of mindset so that we call this place our own and move on. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. Let me see those that are joining us. Thank you all. Let me know where you're joining us from. It's a lovely conversation we're having in here. If you are just joining us, you are welcome to the Power Impact Series Show, proudly brought to you by the African Citizen Speakers Network. Today, where we're having here Omotola doing justice to the topic out there, Africa in the 21st century, and how the aspirants will be its trajectory for growth and development. And if you just join us, you hear what he said about the growth and development. We're about to move into another level. So don't go anywhere. Stick around. Let me know where you're joining us from. Thank you, Nanama Papa. It says, I'm watching it live. Thank you so much for watching it live. Abi Bote Anan says, keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Abi. We are doing it. We need to change that trajectory and make sure we get growth and development in here. So if you're joining us, don't go anywhere. Stick around. We're going to be back shortly. Let's take let's commercial.
Need a spark to kickstart your innovation? Looking for thought and talks to get things moving? Wondering how to navigate a future full of change and uncertainty? With the eye-opening stories of digital disruption, extreme customer centricity, organizational innovation, and global shift, our collective of speakers, MCs, and moderators will shift your perspective. Meet our speakers. For booking and interviews, contact us on 0246 054092 or send us a mail info.afsesnet@gmail.com. You can also follow us on all social media channels at AfsesNet Global, African Seasoned Speakers Network, influencing the next generation of Africans.
Influencing the next generation of Africans. That is what we seek to do, and that's what we're doing here. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Impact Series show, which is proudly brought to you by the African Season Speakers Network. It's been a wonderful time. It's been a wonderful time on this episode. Yes, let me know who is online here. Let me know who just joined us. Okay. Okay. Adesina Lukman Adebowale says what? He says what? Let us take it back. We definitely taking it back, we definitely take it back. Look, man, we're doing that, and exactly what we're going to do. And then, if you've not just gone to the comment area to comment, let me read what you commenting. Let me know who is in the house here. Okay, so Nanama Bichem says, I'm watching from Casland. Thank you so much for watching from Casland. And you know what, Kaswa? Omotola knows Kaswa, so be careful. Mention it to us so that he tells you the area which you are not Kaswa. Because the man just took me off. He's in here. The man just took me off. He started giving me names in Accra and in Ghana, and I'm like, he even said he's been to this golf, and I'm like, oh, man, hold on. The guy has roamed the streets of Accra. He knows which restaurant to let you go at every hour of the day. He was telling me which ones you can go at 12 noon, the ones you can go at 3 p.m. and the ones you can get it for your breakfast. This man is more Ghanaian. You know what? We will give you a Ghana card very soon. The man is more Ghanaian. Wow. And that makes it easier for him to be able to communicate on this topic for us, because he's been through the cracks and crannies of the places, and he knows what is going on there. He's talking about our political issues, and he's talking the right things that we are facing. He's in South Africa now, and he's telling us what is going on in South Africa. He just talked to us about Nigeria and everything. Hey, you don't want to miss any point that he's making. Yeah, so he just gave that point, and I love that point you gave. It's back to us. It is back to us. Now, what about development? What are our developments? What about any form of development? I mean, the human resource development or whatever development that the diasporans can also bring on board for we, the citizen here. As we've made our mind that yes, this is what we're going to do. What about the development? We're not getting it from the government of the day. I mean, we are not getting it from the schools that we're going into. Yes, 21st century, the internet is there with glots of information. What other forms of development can we get to equip ourselves and push ourselves up there to be on that level, just as where they are supposed to be or where they are now? And then we want to bring it back home and have it cooked on home soil. How about the development part of it for the young people in Africa? What are some of the advice you can give to the young people in Africa in respect to development, self-development, developing themselves to be able to match up and pick the mantle that we're going to take from our leaders? And some of the leaders, I mean, you are going to retirement with them. So I just want to see how you're going to look about that development to pick it up from where they're going to leave it and where we're going to pick it up to, and to which level we can take it.
Yeah. Look, I think, first of all, let's first separate this whole development. When people talk about development, they think it's bricks and mortar. Right. That you have to build a bridge, you have to build a road, and so on. I think the 21st century now requires of us to deepen our knowledge of not only books or a course of study, but let's even deepen our knowledge of ourselves first. Ourselves. Who are we? Where do we come from? What is our family background? If your father is a carpenter or a welder and they're very good, why are you not building on that? Why do you want to go and start a profession anew? First, get to know your family history. What are the advantages you bring? If you're an Ashanti man, you will have certain bias. If you're an Ewe man, you have a certain bias. If you're a Fanti man, you have a certain bias. you can take advantage of your tribal bias and
That's right.
leverage it, like the Igbos in Nigeria, very industrious. The Jebus are very industrious. So there's some competitive advantage that you have coming from a
Definitely.
particular tribe and also coming from a particular family. So maybe your family are tailors or they're doctors. Why do you want to stray so much away from that? Because you already have an advantage. That's
True.
the first thing. Get to know yourself, know your family. I came up with a concept called faith, family, career, country, and community. So it's family, faith, career, community, and country. You need to build yourself on all those pillars. Some of us are not very strong on the one or two pillars, but if you can get 3 out of 5, very well. And I'll
Mm.
repeat it again. It's faith, family, career, community, and country. And if you're a big man like Kwame Nkrumah, you can add continent to it. Continent. So you have another C like Kwame Nkrumah, the legend, or Sajifu himself. So if you can focus on those things, because you see in life there are too many things that people worry about. People worry about not having money, not being tall enough, being too fat, being too skinny. There are too many problems that people worry about. But if you focus on those 5, and you don't have to be in competition with anyone, as a young person, I believe that, like, for example, when I was a youngster, I was very good in spelling and dictation. I used to get all the marks, but I wasn't very good in maths because I have a low attention span. So you have
Mm.
to know yourself. So if you're very good in maths, you know that you're going to be good in science. If you're very good in English, you know you're going to be very good in humanities and law, because law is about language. So people, once you arm yourself with certain skill sets, maybe you pick up a sport, maybe you hone a musical talent, maybe sing, maybe learn how to dance or use an instrument, you have to come with a bag of skills. The 21st century does not allow you to say, I'm a lawyer and that's it. You're a lawyer and so what? A lawyer and what else? Can you fly a plane? Can you ride
Mm.
a bicycle? Can you do DIY? Are you good with
Mm.
doing barbecue? So a young person must deepen their skills pool, and I think it helps to travel
Right.
because
Right.
travel is education. Travel
Yeah.
opens your mind.
Right.
Travel allows you to be able to think laterally, so
Yeah.
you're not stressed out about too many things because you've seen the world. Like I have been around Ghana. So when I'm in Accra, I'm not so excited about being in Accra because I know that Ghana is big and beautiful and Accra
Right.
is congested. The only
Yes.
time I enjoy Accra is late at night, like
Okay.
10 p.m. when there's no more
Yeah.
traffic, when there's no more traffic on the road at Tetekwashi and all of that, then I can
I
enjoy
told you.
Accra.
I
Yes,
told you
I
that
can
man
drive.
knows everywhere in Accra.
Yeah, so I can drive to Adenta, I can drive to Medina, I can drive in any direction. So
Right.
they must deepen their skill sets, they must improve their knowledge of their country. I think it's the most painful thing when you see that people don't understand their country's history, they don't
Mm.
understand their country's economy,
Mm.
they don't
Mm.
understand their country's budget. If you don't understand your country's budget, how do you want to invoice the government? How do
Mm.
you invoice somebody that you don't know how much they've got?
Ah,
So I want to sell something to Benjamin. I don't know how much you earn, and I want to sell you something. How do I benchmark?
exactly.
So you must know how much your government earns, and
Okay.
that way you know whether the government can have anything to offer you. Because if the government doesn't have money, how
Right.
do they offer you anything? So you've got to study the economy of your country. You've got to understand the people. You've got to understand the history. And by so doing, you already become one of the elites. Once you have so much knowledge of your country, you will find yourself being useful. They might even interview you as they are doing me now. So, yeah.
Most definitely. That's it. We're going to do it because we need to share your story with us so that you can motivate people and know that, hey, we broke through the ranks, we broke through the walls, and this is where we are now. And that's our story need to be shared for you. So, yes, you need to do that. You need to do what you just told us, and then you can also be up there sharing your story. But there's a question here that is from one of our online viewers. It says, African youth mostly don't like to continue their family business or build on it. What is the real thing? Is it that the business is not doing well, or they feel that they also have to build something on their own? What constitutes this kind of thing that you have some family businesses doing well for like a decade, and all of a sudden, yes, they die off, and then you see this same family people now trying to start something new? Is it that they really don't go in adherence to what their parents left behind for them, or they want to do something else? What constitutes this kind of things that we don't have sustainability in family businesses?
Yeah, look, I think it's a challenge because, firstly, you have to blame the patriarch. So, all of us must first accept that somebody is to blame. So, if you have a child, let's say you're like Aliko Dangote,
Right.
how can Aliko Dangote's son go and work for someone else? Does that make any sense? I don't think it
Yeah.
makes any sense. How can Donald Trump's children go and work for someone else? It doesn't make any sense, right? So that's
It
the
doesn't.
first thing. So the parents have to, try and get the kids to, from a young age, like the Indians do. They get them involved in the business from a young age. It's non-negotiable. Like when we were young, you have to do your chores before you can eat. You can't eat first and then do your chores. And it's non-negotiable, right?
Yeah.
If you don't do it, they'll beat you up. I mean, you'll be violated. So that's how it works. There's no confusion. So you do your chores, then you eat. And the chores are many. You might be at the chores for 6 hours. Serious chores, not just cleaning a tabletop or washing a plate. So that's
Right.
not a chore. That's just leisure. So that's the first thing, right? So the parents must imbibe, you groom, you motivate, of course, risk reward. So you have to tell them, look, if they do this, this is what they're going to get. Without sacrifice, there's no gain, no pain, no gain. You explain it to them, you teach them the principles of business, profit and loss, independence. If you have your own business, you grow it, you have a customer base, you service them, customer service, marketing. You have to get them to go and do studies of business. So things that will interest them. It's not just you. You can also send them to other businesses that are different from yours. If you're a mechanic or you have a tailoring business, you can send them to a carpentry business or furniture business or more advanced form of the business that you're doing so that they find it interesting. You have to paint it for them in a way that they like it. Kids like things that are fun. They want it to be fun, but sometimes they won't be fun. You just have to impose and tell them this is what they have to do because this is what you had to do. And if they love you, they'll listen. So that's the thing. But of course, you also have to tell them that you give them statistics of businesses. The richest people in America, 66% of them are self-employed. Your Zuckerbergs, the gentleman who owns Apple, forgot his name, Steve Jobs, your
Jobs.
Warren Buffett, the rich guys, Elon Musk's, they're business owners. They own their own businesses. They don't
That's
work
it.
for people. They don't
At
say
all.
good morning, sir. In Africa, we like to say good morning, sir, every day, 24 hours. Yeah, we like good morning, sir. Good
Yes,
afternoon,
sir.
sir. Goodbye, sir. Good night, sir. Thank you, sir. But so, in that sense, there's nothing wrong with being polite, but I think Africans, we say too much, sir. Even in England, where the sir comes from, they don't say sir as much as we do it in Africa. Sometimes it can be very irritating. But anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that, look, you've got to coach them and show them. Statistics has shown that the richest people in the world are those who are self-employed. Majority of them, apart from people who have inherited from a billionaire and so on, they find it in the family, okay? Or people who grow a company and then They might be lucky to buy the company, but typically the richest people are people who own their own thing, because there's no ceiling in what you can do if you own your own business. So that is basically what should be told to young people. But also, if I want to be very blunt, if your father is doing well in a business and it's small, if you're wise, you should jump in, because you would have become probably more educated than your dad, or gone to better schools. So you can bring skills that your father didn't have to grow the business. There's no point sneezing at your father's business that he used to send you to school. Even if it's a small business, even if it's one trotro, even if it's one trotro that sent you to school, it's one trotro that sent you to school. You know, so you can't be doing, you can't be looking down on any business. Actually, every business is important. Even the guy who's selling kenke, the lady who's selling kenke, small business, she's feeding her family with that money. So every business can be scalable as well. You can scale any business, depending on, if there's opportunity and potential, then you can scale that business. So I think that there's nothing for young people to run away, because if you run away from your dad's business, you're still going to have to go and work for someone else who has started a business. Maybe it's bigger, but they have to start small. Most businesses start small.
That's right. Yeah, more businesses. That's small. That's it. That's beautiful. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. And you know how we do it always. We have a hashtag for today's episode. So if you have for us today to be used as a hashtag, get into the chat area, bring in the let's compare notes. Probably, hey, who knows? We might have the same thing as a hashtag for today. So you can bring out what you've learned today, what you've been able to glean from all that has been shared as your hashtag. You know what we do is that we have a hashtag for the day's episode that carries us throughout the whole, and then that rings a bell on our mind on whatever we've been able to glean from whatever was shared. So you can come up with your hashtag that you think. But what are your last words that you want to share with us before we end today's episode?
Yeah, look, I want to say to Nigerians, Ghanaians, Kenyans, South Africans, Sudanese, Rwandese who are in diaspora, that they should take, wherever they are, they should take the political economy of Africa more seriously. And also the country where they are, they should try as much as possible to get involved in the political economy of that country, whether they're a refugee, whether they have papers or not, whether they're a teacher or a doctor. They must get involved, because the world has become a global village. Obama did not go to Kenya to go and contest for any office, and he rose to the presidency. And his father, who was a Kenyan who went to the United States and had Obama, did not get to even the levels that Obama got to in the United States. So you can actually make it wherever you are. You don't have to return to Ghana to become president of Ghana for you to matter. You can become a minister in Canada, you can become a minister in Australia, but you must imbibe the culture of the country where you're at. You must integrate, you must get your papers, you must stay away from cops. You mustn't be a friend of the cops. If you're a friend of the cops, it means you're a criminal. So you mustn't be friends to cops. There's no need to have friends. If you want to have friends, have sportsmen or entertainers, not cops. I'll leave it there.
It says he lives in there. All right, I'm about to get it. Let's take the hashtag for today. Yeah. And he summed it up so beautifully in his final words. The hashtag for today, that is it there. Be active or complain. It's two things: either you are active or you are complaining. So choose any of this. Don't say, I'm just sitting aloof. I'm just sitting. I'm not thinking anyway. Be active or you will have to complain so that the system will be made good for you and then for whatever you want to do. And you know what? You cannot come here without you taking some tips. So Mutala, we will come back again to you, but you cannot come here without taking any cyber tips. Our cyber tips for today, cyber security tips for today is just simple. This is it for today. Our cyber tip for today is this: check the URLs. check the URLs. And what one was what the URLs? That the uniform resource locators. This is they are just as buildings has addresses and streets, so do web pages also have addresses with which users can reach those web pages. And it is being made possible by the URL. So the URLs helps you to get to the web pages. And you know, the bad guys, this is what they are doing now. They send you emails, they send you text messages, or they even send you messages on your social media pages. What they do is that they send you with a phishing link, or they send a link in the message that they give to you. And their whole idea for you is this: you will have to click on those links. The moment you click on those links will redirect you to a page where they're going to harvest your personal information. And in other ways, it sends you to a page which is going to infest your device with malwares where they can have direct remote access to your device. So this is what you do when you get those emails, when you get those text messages with those links in there. All you need to do is rather get to the URL and retype that link that they've sent to you, retype it there and see if it's going to take you to the purported website they are trying to direct you to. In that way, you are going to be safe. In that way, you are going to look secured than clicking directly on the link, which is going to take you to a place where they want you to be, and then they can take advantage of you. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. And as our dreams are level, make sure you get to the top level of your dream. So we'll meet same time next week on the same platform. All I want to say is that goodbye. Have a wonderful week. And you know what? We are entering into the African month. This is our time and this is our moment. To meet same time next week, I want to say from the team from the African Season Speakers Network, all we're saying is thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying through to us and listening to all the wonderful wisdom nuggets that was shared with us by Omotola. See you same time next week. Have a wonderful week.